Good evening, comrades across Ghana and, of course, across the 32 African countries watching us today. Welcome to the show. This is Wednesday Palaver. My name is Ivan Vance Aban. Now, today our topic for discussion is the anti-imperialist struggle as part of the celebration or as part of the International Week for Celebration. Now, today's guest is in the person of Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr. He's going to be helping us discuss this matter extensively. And so, with a resounding round of applause, shall we invite upstage Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr.
Well, good afternoon to all our viewers in Ghana and elsewhere. This is part of the events marking the week of anti-imperialist struggle. And this event is so very important for many reasons. This afternoon, about an hour ago, something just occurred to me to look up the meaning of imperialism in some of the standard dictionaries that we have. So I took the Thesaurus Dictionary, which is one of the most reputed dictionaries, which is used in all of our educational institutions, and I tried to look up the word imperialism. And to my surprise, the word imperialism cannot be found in the dictionaries. Now, this simply means that you can go through our formal systems of education from nursery to the university level and not be able to come across imperialism or have the opportunity of discussing imperialism. That is why these special attempts to focus attention on imperialism becomes extremely important. This discussion today is about the impact of imperialism in West Africa. And a lot of times when we talk about the impact of imperialism, we are looking for some gigantuan institutions, we are looking for something out of the way and so on, in order to find whether imperialism is making an impact. Imperialism does make an impact in everything about ourselves. In what we wear, the way we talk, what we eat, what we learn at school, and so on. All of that. In all of that, you can find vestiges of imperialism. And I'm going to try and do a very little exercise today to show how imperialism affects every aspect of our lives. When our people are hungry and cannot produce enough food to eat, you will find that answer in imperialism. When the quality of education falls, you will still find that answer in imperialism. When we are not able to cater for the basic needs of nursing mothers, of homeless people and so on, the answer would lie in imperialism. Indeed, when our governments fail to take measures which will ensure that we take control of our natural resources and exploit those natural resources for the benefit of our people, you would find some of the answers for the lack of action in imperialism. Indeed, simply put, imperialism is a system which is used to dominate and exploit other people, which is used to dominate and exploit the resources of other nations. It's a system which globalizes capitalism. It's a system which puts capitalism on a global stage. It's a system which links capitalist states together and facilitate the massive exploitation, the unreasonable, the unwarranted, the illegitimate exploitation of peoples all over the world. Imperialism does not find expression only in Africa. It finds expression all over the world. It finds expression in Australia, it finds expression in Asia, it finds expression in North America, it finds expression in the Caribbean. And the imperialist forces are linked together They are in military alliances. They form political alliances. They try to dominate institutions like the United Nations. They are infiltrating the Organization of African Unity. They are infiltrating the non-aligned movement and so on, in order for their control over the resources and peoples of the world to be strengthened and so on. Again, it's important for us to understand very clearly that even the institutions that we take for granted, like religious institutions and so on, are not innocent and neutral when it comes to fighting imperialism or imperialism attempting to dominate, to exploit, to establish itself on the world globe. In 1452, the King of Portugal, King Afonso, received what has come to be known as the Papal Bull from the Pope. From the Pope. The Pope issued the Papal Bull 1452 to King Alfonso of Portugal, authorizing King Alfonso and what later became the mercenaries of the European empires to explore the rest of the world, to go into the rest of the world, to spread Christianity and so on. And the Papal Bull authorized these vampires, these mercenaries and so on, to kill those who refuse to be converted into Christianity, to seize their properties, to capture their wives into slavery and so on, if they refuse to surrender to the dictates of Christianity and so on. So you see that here, religion played a very significant role in that so-called exploration which led to the enslavement of our people. As a consequence of this Papal Bull and many other things that happened around the world, which we shall come to discuss when we have a lot of time, many Africans, and indeed no West African country, was excluded from this bestial trade which came to be known as the transatlantic slave trade, in which our forebears, the engineers, the carpenters, the medicine men and so on, the strongest of our people, were captured as beasts of burden to work on the sugarcane plantations, to work on the cotton plantations and so on, for free, for hundreds of years, in which our forebears were captured and used like any domestic animals. The slave master had the right to kill the slave without recourse to law. The slave master, if he killed the slave, there was the law said nothing. It was his property and had the right to dispose of the property as he wished. So today, the wealth of the United States of America, the wealth of Britain, the wealth of Germany, the wealth of France and so on, can be traced to the free labor that our forebears were compelled to provide, labor that they provided for hundreds of years for free. That is the source of the wealth of these so-called powerful nations, and some make the mistake of even calling them developed nations and so on. Then we have to understand also the impact of classical colonialism on West Africa. Indeed, there's no country in West Africa which did not experience the transatlantic slave trade and its negative impact. There's no country in West Africa who did not also experience classical colonialism. And under classical colonialism, through the force of arms, our people were subjugated, our people were dominated and exploited solely for the benefit of the colonial metropolis. Indeed, it is important to recognize that under classical colonialism, we lost our right to elect our own leaders. The governor who sat in the Christianborg Castle in Accra was appointed by the Queen of England, and the Queen of England did not consult the people of the Gold Coast in the appointment of the governor. Even district chief executives were appointed from the colonial metropolis by the Queen of England. And this is the pattern that happened throughout West Africa. You understand? Now today, they want to teach us about democracy. They who denied us the right to choose our own leaders, want us to follow their standards, and so on. That's a problem. Now, it's important, when I was growing up, and I'm not a very old person, when I was growing up, when I went to church on Sunday morning, the priest was a white person. When I went to secondary school, most of my teachers were white people. The postmaster was a white person. The governor was a white person. The governor's secretary was a white person, and so on. So over a period of time, this created a certain complex of inferiority. A certain complex of inferiority which even found expression in local languages. So for example, if you come amongst the Akans in Ghana, one of the most popular sayings is that Bonyani John, simply translated as, if you are looking for a John, and a John is a champion, if you are looking for a John, look for a white man. So we even began internalizing these concepts of inferiority in our own languages, in our own idiomatic expressions, and so on. That is the danger of classical colonialism. The danger of classical colonialism is that it made us accept the imposed state of inferiority. You understand? Now, when you go home and you eat anything that you eat, on your plate, you find an expression of imperialism. And let me just demonstrate that. All the 16 regions of Ghana have very favorable conditions for the cultivation of rice. And indeed, locally produced rice is said to be far more nutritious than imported polished rice. And yet, we spend huge amounts of money importing polished rice from elsewhere because of that mentality that what is here is not good enough and that the best comes from the outside, especially the colonial metropolis. This conditioning is as a result of hundreds of years of domination and exploitation. This conditioning is about the miseducation of our people, which is a product of classical colonialism. And classical colonialism itself is an expression of capitalist exploitation on a global scale. And capitalist exploitation on a global scale is imperialism. You understand? So even in the food we eat, look, under Nkrumah, the Nkrumah government was building monumental projects, hydroelectric projects, expanding access to education, building factories for the production of everything, electronic goods and so on. In a period of 9 years, close to 500 factories producing shoes, producing garments and so on were built in Ghana. The Workers' Brigade was set up to produce local food, grains and so on. And yet, the middle class continuously complained that there was food shortage in the country. And indeed, that formed part of the excuses which were used in order to overthrow the Nkrumah government and so on. What was happening? The middle class was not interested in drinking cocoa in the morning and eating banku in the afternoon and eating konkonte in the evening. The middle class had been brought up to eat cheese, to eat sausages, to eat canned food and so on. So when cocoyam was available, when plantains were available, when yams were available, the middle class was still crying hunger because the cheese was not available. The European foods were not available and so on. This is an expression of imperialism and its impact on the people. And you find this expression throughout West Africa. Indeed, you find this expression of imperialism actually throughout the African continent. You find it in Asia, you find it in the Caribbean, and you find it everywhere. This domination which finds expression in what we eat and what we like to eat, and what we consider to be food, it's itself the result of imperialism. When I was growing up again, I went to school. And questions were framed in such a way that students were compelled to accept the colonial yoke, you understand. I mean, imagine going to write an examination in Form 1 in the middle school, and the question is, what were the advantages and disadvantages of colonialism? And if you had to pass your examination, you had to write list advantages and list disadvantages of colonialism. So right from the beginning, we are positioned in a way, if you want to pass your examination, then you have to learn about advantages of colonialism. And indeed, some of the advantages that we were taught of colonialism were so nonsensical and unscientific, and yet we had to pass the examination, and we imbibed this nonsense. For example, one of the examples of the advantages of colonialism that we were taught in our schools was that colonialism brought education. What's rubbish? So if you didn't have education, how were we able to transfer knowledge and skills from one generation to the other? How were our grandfathers who were fishermen able to teach us to become fishermen like them if we didn't have education? And yet, colonial education taught us that that was an advantage of colonialism and so on, and it spreads throughout the educational system. Indeed, in most African countries today, history is not being taught as a standalone subject. It was only last month or 2 months ago that Ghana decided to reintroduce the teaching of history as a standalone subject. Why? Because if you know our history, if you know our true history, we will rebel against this charade of multi-party democracy which takes us nowhere, which allows the imperialists to continue to dominate us and so on. And therefore, we should not be taught history at all in our schools. History should not be taught in our schools and so on. Now, viewers, comrades, and friends, we are talking about West Africa today. What is the concrete situation in West Africa today, and how is that related to imperialism? West Africa is in serious turmoil. If you go to Nigeria, which is the most populated country in West Africa, Nigeria alone has a population of about 230 economic agenda which transfers wealth from Nigeria to the colonial metropolis. Now, if the problem had to do with just Nigeria alone, maybe we would not be so alarmed. You take La Côte d'Ivoire, and La Côte d'Ivoire has only recently been through a gruesome civil war in which hundreds of thousands of people died so that France would have its way in La Côte d'Ivoire. Recently, indeed, Alassane Ouattara, the current head of state of La Côte d'Ivoire, is amending the constitution to enable him to contest elections for a third term and so on. That again is generating sufficient turmoil in La Côte d'Ivoire. And indeed, there are predictions that La Côte d'Ivoire may soon return to its violent past and so on. But what is significant is that in the civil war in La Côte d'Ivoire, which was sponsored by France and other Western countries and so on, the fighters, the rebel fighters, came from Sierra Leone, they came from Liberia, they came from Burkina Faso, and so on. Indeed, there's even evidence that some of them used Ghana as their base. So you are talking about a civil war in La Côte d'Ivoire, but that civil war in La Côte d'Ivoire also connects with Burkina Faso, connects with Sierra Leone, connects with Liberia, and connects with Ghana. In any case, when these civil wars occur, and people begin to flee the civil war, they flee into the neighboring countries. And right now, as we speak, there's a huge Côte d'Ivoire refugee population in Ghana. Put that aside. Today, as we speak, there's what is called Islamic insurgency in most of the northern states in West Africa. Islamic insurgency is occurring in Mali, is occurring in Senegal, is occurring in Guinea, and it is believed that it will soon spread throughout West Africa. All the intelligence report says that this insurgency could spread. Then if you go into Cameroon, there's a full-blown civil war between the southern Cameroonians who call themselves English-speaking. I don't know how they came to call themselves English-speaking, but they call themselves English-speaking, and the northern Cameroonians, who also somehow call themselves French-speaking. And this civil war has been raging for close to 2 years, and there does not appear to be a solution to the crisis in Cameroon. Now, one would wonder why I'm including Cameroon in the assessment of West Africa. I'm including Cameroon in the assessment of West Africa because there's people who call themselves the Southern Ambazonians, Ambazonians, actually consider themselves West Africa. And they were originally administered together with Nigeria and so on. So even though, in terms of the political arrangement, Cameroon is considered to be part of Central Africa, if you look at the history and if you look at the present configuration and so on, you may at least consider parts of Cameroon as West Africa. So there's turmoil there. The political crisis in Togo has not abated. There are forces, political forces in Togo, which are questioning the legitimacy of the Yadima government. And you can see the hands of all the colonial masters at play in this scenario and so on. Now you look at Mali, and recently the situation there has been described as a coup d'etat by ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, and so on. Some Malians think that it's a revolution and so on. Whatever it is, the multi-party order, the bourgeois democratic order in Mali has been overthrown, and Mali has not as yet attained a certain level of stability and so on. So you see all of these conflicts over natural resources, conflicts about who controls oil, who benefits from the oil, conflicts about ethnicity and so on, raging throughout West Africa. Now it's important for us to ask ourselves, how did these conflicts come into being? The conflicts came into being when the European powers, without regard to the interests of the African, sat around the table in Berlin, put the map of Africa on the table, and used pencils to draw lines across the maps to create our so-called current states. Our current states were not created by the African people. Ghana is not our creation. Nigeria is not our creation. Benin is not our creation. Burkina Faso is not our creation. These happen to be states because the European powers drew lines across us to mark their areas of influence and areas for their sole exploitation. I've traveled around in Africa, especially in West Africa, and some of the things you find in West Africa are simply shocking. If you go to the Ghana-Togo border, you would find one house. The kitchen is in Togo and the bedroom is in Ghana. The people in that house, are they Ghanaians or they are Togolese? And how did that come about? That came about because the borders were drawn arbitrarily without the involvement of the African people. And yet, today, Africans, West Africans, are fighting over these borders as if the borders are their own creation. They are talking about national sovereignty, the protection of the territorial integrity of countries and so on. Which countries? Which country did you create? You understand? And these conflicts over borders and so on are a direct consequences of the 1884 Berlin Conference, where European powers divided us among themselves. What authority did the European powers have to divide Africa among themselves and to continue to create the current conditions? Today in Ghana, a secessionist movement is raging in the Volta region. They call themselves Western Togoland, the new Republic of Western Togoland and so on. What is the basis of that conflict? The basis of that conflict is that Togoland as a whole was a German colonial territory. After the defeat of Germany in the Second World War, it was decided to partition Togo amongst and give part to France, for France to administer, and give part to the British, for the British to administer. So you have the French Togoland and you have the German Togoland. Of course, through the instrumentality of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and the Convention People's Party, who sought to bring all of us together, a massive effort went into the unification process, leading to a plebiscite in 1956, who joined so-called German Togoland to current-day Ghana to form today's Ghana. Of course, the seeds of division and so on sold by the colonialists still persist. And that has become the basis for the needless and useless agitation for further division, leading to the crisis in the Volta region of Ghana. And I think it's important for us to understand this very clearly. Now, the Nigerian example it's important because the Nigerian example teaches us many things. Under the distinguished leader of Nigeria, President Yar'Adua, it was decided that Nigeria would not accept to host foreign bases on its land. Nigeria rejected all foreign military bases on its land. And indeed, Nigeria made a declaration that it would not accept the imposition of foreign military bases anywhere in Africa, and that the imposition of foreign military bases would be an affront to Nigeria. Then what happened? Then the Niger Delta rebellion started. Then the Boko Haram insurgency started. Then Nigeria faced the threat of Islamic insurgency and so on. Now the Nigerian government is compelled to accept military advisors, intelligence advisors and so on from all manner of countries, from the United States of America, from Israel, from Britain and so on. Because the Nigerian government finds itself increasingly incapable of facing up to the insurgencies in Nigeria and so on. So who is benefiting from the Boko Haram insurgency? So who is benefiting from the Niger Delta rebellion? The people who benefit are the imperialist forces, the external military forces who use this as a pretext into coming into our countries and so on. Now there's an economic dimension, national economic dimension to the reality of imperialism in West Africa. First of all West African countries who describe themselves as French-speaking, and I don't know how West African countries can be French-speaking, but somehow they describe themselves as French-speaking. All of them use the CFA. Their currency is the CFA. Now, because they use the CFA, they are required to deposit all their foreign reserves in the Central Bank of France. All their foreign reserves are deposited in the Central Bank of France. Now, when they need foreign exchange in order to finance development and so on, they go to France for loans. And what happens? France loans them their own money and they pay interest on their own money which they have loaned from France. This situation is clearly untenable. But that is the reality. You understand? Now, if you come to the so-called English-speaking countries and so on, recently, look at the agreement that we signed with the European Union. The economic partnership agreement that we have signed with the European Union, which makes it impossible for our infant industries to develop, which insists that our infant industries and so on should compete at the same level with European industries. And we are not allowed to discriminate against European industries when the Europeans are constantly discriminating against goods from Africa and from the third world and so on. So there's a clear manifestation of imperialism at the plane of national economic management and so on. One of the worst things that happens is that right from infancy, we are told that for us to make strides, giant strides, development strides into the future and so on, we have to copy what the so-called advanced countries did to get to their standard. We are not told, however, that these so-called advanced countries got to the levels at which they are through the transatlantic slave trade, through classical colonialism, and through today's neo-colonialism. The question I've always asked is that those who say that we should follow the path of the United States of America or Germany or Britain or France in order to be able to develop, those who say that, they should show us today as Ghanaians one country anywhere in the world whose people we can go and capture as slaves to come and work for us for hundreds of years without pay. They should show us which countries today we can go out and colonize and steal their resources for our own development. That option is not available to us. The only option which is available to us is the use of our brain and muscle power, the exploitation of our resources and the use of our resources in order to advance our own interests. That is why it's a scandal of huge proportions that many countries in West Africa today have no control of their resources. I've already mentioned that Nigeria is producing 2 billion barrels of oil a day. How much of that oil, or how much of what is gained out of the exploitation of 2 billion barrels of oil a day goes to the Nigerian people? Nigerian oil is in the hands of Shell, is in the hands of multinational corporations, from outside the continent. You talk about Ghana, and everybody says that Ghana is a leading producer of gold. I love to hear that. Many people love to hear that, but it is nonsensical. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything because Ghanaian interest in gold mining is only 2%. 2%. Indeed, the value of gold that is exported out of this country, we don't even get 3% of the value. So how is Ghana a leading producer of gold? What does that mean? That rubbish. What does it really mean in real practical terms and so on? And this goes for all the West African states. West Africa has enormous resources. West Africa has huge quantities of iron, huge quantities of gold, huge quantities of diamond. We have rivers flowing through our territories. We are bounded on the south by the Atlantic Ocean, huge ocean and so on. West Africa has gas and so on. And yet, look at the poverty levels in West Africa. And the poverty levels in West Africa are directly the result of the fact that these resources are no longer owned by the people of West Africa and exploited by the West Africans in their own interests. Comrades, we don't have enough time. But I think that we will not get a full picture if I do not talk about the emergence of foreign military bases on West African soil. As we speak, Ghana has allowed the United States of America to establish a full-blown military base on its soil. The terms and conditions under which this military base has been established is mind-boggling, and it shows the extent to which our leaders have simply lost it. You understand? If you travel around West Africa, there are French military bases all over the place in almost all the French-speaking countries. You understand? That must be a major source of concern for the Africans, for all of us. We should be asking ourselves why France, the United States of America, and others, NATO and others, are interested in establishing military bases on our soil. The only reason is that they want to protect their interests. And what is their interest? Their interest is the ownership and exploitation of our own resources for their own benefit. So the foreign military bases on African soil, West African soil, is a major threat to our independence, is a major threat to our economic prosperity, and we need to take steps to drive these foreign military bases into the sea. These foreign military bases are an affront to our dignity and so on. Comrades, my time is up. I do hope that when it comes to the interaction with the studio audience, there will be an opportunity to elaborate on other areas. On this occasion, we of the Socialist Forum of Ghana would want to salute all the working people of the world, wherever they may be, on their heroic struggle against the negative forces of underdevelopment, poverty, and oppression. We stand shoulder to shoulder with all the forces, working people, fighting everywhere and anywhere. And we do this because we do realize that the enemy is united. We do this because we do realize that a blow to the Cuban Revolution is a blow to the African Revolution. We do this because we make no distinction between the colonial occupation of Palestine and the colonial occupation of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. We do this because all of us face the same enemy. We do this because all of us have to join hands and wage this relentless struggle for our liberty. The trampling of the liberty of the people of Cuba would have an effect on us. So all of us ought to unite in this giant, heroic struggle to free not just Ghana, not just West Africa, not just Africa, but the whole world from the yoke of domination and exploitation. Thank you all very much.
Wow. Powerful speech there by Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr. I mean, personally, I'm a victim of such system. I mean, one that got me thinking was the answering of, the advantages and disadvantages of colonialism. A system being put together by, foreign predators. And so we say, abash imperialism, abash capitalism. Viewers at home or comments at home, I'm sure you are itching to join in the conversation. I'll put the phone lines out there and the call lines out there. You can join in the conversation by sharing with us your thoughts and comments on the WhatsApp number 0260846539, 0260846539. We are live on Facebook as well at Pan-African Television. Live on Facebook at Pan-African Television. Now let's come to the audience in the studio. I'll take some messages and some contribution and questions from you as well. Anyone want to contribute or ask a question can put up your hands and I'll call you to the podium. Okay, so I'll start with you, Comrade, in the green nose marks, and I'll come to Comrade Baden, and I'll come to you, my comrade there. I mean, we'll still have more interaction as time goes on. Thank you very much.
Good evening, viewers. Uncle, well done. My question is about these military bases in West African countries. I think we have the AU, African Union. It comes to meeting most of the times. What do they say about it? I just want to know, because they are there for us and then we need to hear something from them. Is it okay? So, Uncle, we want to know. Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Pratt. Good evening to comrades here and good evening to our cherished viewers. I wish to draw the attention of the entire continent that it is about time we unite. Not only the continent, all oppressed people around the world. Our differences are not, or our struggles are not different. We have similar struggles. If you go to Cote d'Ivoire, they are going through unemployment situations. Togo, same. If you go to the Caribbean, you face or you see same things there. So I think that it is about time all struggling people around the world unite and say that no to imperialism and no to capitalism. Because I was reading recently and I noticed that the world's farmers are able to produce food that is able to feed 10 billion people. And our current population is about 7.6 billion. So why is it that people still go to bed with empty stomachs? These are things that we should avert our minds to. These are things that we shouldn't just let it pass by. These are things that we should think critically about and unite and say that enough is enough. Thank you.
Good evening, fellow audience and those who are outside. We would like to thank Uncle Kwesi for this narrative. In fact, there are a lot that I've learned from what he's giving us. But there's still a probing question, and that is our current, and it goes to our current crop of leadership. In the 1940s, 60s, we had very serious revolutionary leaders who led us through struggle to overthrow colonialism in the continent and even West Africa. What are our current crop of leaders doing? Because I read somewhere that neocolonialism, and in fact imperialism, is the last stage of capitalism. So it follows that he's a capitalist. Only few people who are still ruling this world. So how come that we, the majority, the suffering masses, the fishermen, the farmers, the cocoa, and even those people heading their ships can come together so that we control our resources and we do away with this kind of capitalist. So we push it to you, the masses. Let's all get together, rise up, and fight capitalism, because that is the last stage. This is the last stage. They are really, really struggling. This is the last stage. So let's unite and do away with capitalism. So all people of the world will live a very happier life. Thank you very much.
Any more suggestions, comments, or questions? Okay, so we invite upstage Comrade Kwesi Pratt to answer these questions for us.
Well, most of the questions hinge on leadership. What are African leaders doing and so on. The reality is that today, Africa doesn't have leaders like Modibo Keita, like Kwame Nkrumah, and so on. Today's African leaders are largely puppets of imperialism. Today's African leaders don't serve the interests of the African people. Today's African leaders are those who are negotiating and signing pacts which allows military bases on the continent. Today's African leaders are the leaders who are signing the economic partnership agreement with Europe and so on. Today's African leaders are the leaders who have been carefully selected by imperialism and put in place. I was a little boy when Nkrumah was overthrown in 1966, on February 24, 1966. The main objective of the 1966 coup, as was disclosed by a cable which was dispatched to the British Foreign Office by the British High Commissioner in Ghana then, 1961, September 1961. His name was A.W. Snelling. The objective was clear. A.W. Snelling wrote to the Foreign Office that Nkrumah was making the African too politically conscious and therefore they had to get rid of him. So the purpose of the 1966 coup was to get rid of Nkrumah and leaders like him so that the puppets can take over. And the puppets have taken over. The organization of what used to be the Organization of the African Unity, which is today the African Union, is nothing but a collection of puppets of imperialism. And we cannot deceive ourselves that they will serve our interests. That is why we have to build our independent organizations and link hands across the continent of Africa, link hands with every other independent mass organizations dedicated to liberation, so that we can build a new world order. That kind of new world order, which was the vision of Ernesto Che Guevara, which was the vision of Fidel Castro, which was the vision of Hugo Chavez, which was the vision of Kwame Nkrumah, and which was the vision of Thomas Sankara. That is the new world we have to build. We have to build that new world which Chris Hani dreamt about. We have to build that new world which Mao Zedong dreamt about. That is our charge. We cannot depend on these leaders, these current leaders, to take us out of the quagmire of poverty, ignorance, and disease. Comrades, when Nkrumah was overthrown in 1966, books written by Nkrumah and about Nkrumah were burnt into ashes in bonfires on our university campuses. In fact, Parliament sat under a certificate of urgency to pass a law making it a criminal offense to print, hold, or distribute Nkrumah's photographs. That today, we can gather in the studios of Pan-African television and discuss imperialism, and discuss ways of combating imperialism, and join the rest of the organizations across the globe in celebrating the Anti-Imperialist week of struggle, is an indication that we have defeated them. We have not achieved the objective yet, but we are defeating them step by step, blow by blow, and we shall defeat them and conquer them and build the United States of Africa, under the banner of socialism, we will succeed.
Thank you very much, Uncle Kwesi Pratt Jr. At this stage, I'll take some messages that have come in on our Facebook platform, and of course, we'll look at WhatsApp as well. Now, this one is coming from Daniel Y. Akusi. He says, indeed, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was an icon, excellent on political landscape during his lifetime, and indeed became timeless. So is Uncle Kwesi Pratt. Okay, all right. This one says that our problem today is that Africa has weakened leadership and self-seeking leaders who lack common sense to think like Nkrumah and his peers. This one says that Russians mind their own business and do not take interest in exploitation of Africa. Do not take interest in such dubious activities, unlike other Western powers. This is coming from Anthony Kwesi. Okay, Anthony. This one is coming from Daniel Agbote. He says, thank you very much for your concern as big educational on our downfall as continent. Okay. This one is coming from Peter Kofi Malfo. He says, this my uncle. I really don't know the kind of man he is. Unfortunately, we'll be celebrating him after he's gone and not now. This one is coming from Malungu Watson. Says, I'm following from Zambia. I'm part of the Zambia Socialist Party. I'm a member. Thank you very much for making time with us. This one says that may Allah relieve Ghana from these wicked leaders. This is coming from Yusuf Mahmudu. I see the messages coming in. This one says that you are indeed a true Pan-Africanist. It's coming from Daniel Demi. Okay, and this one says that thank you, Uncle Kwesi Pratt. May God bless you abundantly for this lecture. Okay, and it follows on and on. This one says that Kwesi Pratt is too much. I like him. Listening to wisdom. This one says that God bless you, Uncle Kwesi Pratt. Coming from Edmond Asibe. This one says that Vincent. This is coming from Vincent Kingsford. He says, my uncle is speaking wisdom. This one says that Al Hassan A. Sam says, I love your presentation. May Allah bless you. And then it follows on and on and on and on and on. This one says that please stop calling, and just send a text message and we'll gladly read it out. This one is coming from Lillian Akosia. It says, great public servants. People, okay, this is much more about Ghana politics. Now let's read some messages that have come on our WhatsApp platform. Okay, I see the messages coming in plenty. This one says that the military base in West Africa, how realistic would it be for them to vacate without the spillage of blood? This is coming from Ayi Samuel. The military base in West Africa, how realistic? Okay, same messages again. Okay. This one says, I think we need leaders that can put their minds together. And stand on their toes to fight for West Africa. We need leaders who have no self-interest. We need leaders who are not hypocritical. We need leaders who are not low-minded. God have mercy. I love you, Uncle Kwesi Pratt Jr. Okay. This one says that today is my first time of listening to you, and I'm very impressed. I would like to suggest that this message be translated into Twi. Thank you. This is coming from Jones from Kumasi. Thank you, Jones, for your message. Messages coming in. Please, this one says that hello, good evening. I strongly believe the gradual strategy needed for is education. Therefore, how can our leaders or our educational system be structured to help achieve this? Okay. This one says that our problem is we do not know why we choose leaders. Most choose leaders out of ignorance. May Allah protect us. I love you, Mr. Pratt. This is coming from Kambali. This one says that Ghana, West Africa will change with good leaders. Al-Hadi Coalition sending this one in. Thank you very much for your messages. This one says that amazing presentation, Comrade Kwesi Pratt. In my opinion, we need a revolutionary leader more than ever. A revolutionary education structure in Ghana, where the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey will be taught in high schools together with other writings of This one says that please salute my only father for me. I'm a boy in Angloga. Okay, meaning your father, Kwesi Pratt Jr. This one says that Uncle Kwesi, it pains me men who believe in great Osajifo don't know the word unity. This is coming from John Aqua from Mankesim. George, thank you very much for your message. This one says that the Palaver, we, some alumni of Ho Technical University, have graduated but have still not been given our transcripts and anything. We approach the school academic affairs. Okay, all right, we'll see what we can do about that for you. This one says that how I wish our leaders would give a listening ear to our words of wisdom. With your kind, we still have hope. God bless you, Uncle, for this generation. This is coming from Ahmed from Nigeria. Thank you very much, Ahmed, for your message. Okay. This one says that good evening. Okay. This one says that good evening. I am Moses from Takoradi. This is my first time watching this show. For over 5 minutes, I am impressed by the education on this show. Mr. Kwesi Pratt mentioned that Ghana's percentage of gold mining and other resources is just a mirage of 2%. Very saddening. Please, how do we get out of this bondage? I mean, what is the way out? Because we have almost every resources, but we are poor. This is coming from Mustiv from Takoradi. Thank you very much for your message. This one says that good evening. I am Ganyo Mawuyefia from Akpegoso. Okay, please, I want to ask if there is any history or agreement during the 1956 plebiscite that after 50 years the people of Western Togoland can separate themselves from Gold Coast, because I in person have read that in our history books in school. Thank you very much. I think Uncle Kwesi Pratt, Comrade Kwesi Pratt, will address that briefly for us, then we can wrap up. I see a lot of messages coming in. This one says that, hi, good evening. Please, I watched your program this evening with Mr. Pratt and I enjoyed all the vibes. Please, is there any group we can join? Okay, we'll look at that. Yes, we'll look at that. I think our producers will look at that message and get in contact with you. This one says, lastly, this one says that indeed, as Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was an icon per excellence in a political landscape. I think I read this message already. You sent it again. So let me take one last message, and I think we are behind time. This one says that my name is Abdul Fattah Damu. Uncle, I'm living in Germany. How can I be a member? I like Uncle Kwesi too much, so much on Metro TV every time. Okay, very much. Okay, we'll take note of this number as well. I think you want to be a part of the Socialist Forum of Ghana. Okay, this one says that sometimes as a teacher, it really gets to me when my students have questions, answers like advantage of colonialism, and our students begin to believe that there were some good as far as colonialism is concerned. Okay. I don't know, is our time up already? Let's take some last message, then we can wrap up on the show. Please ask Uncle how African countries would have been constructed without colonialism. Okay, all right. So let me give Uncle just a minute so he can address the issue of the moratorium, whether or not the plebiscite was just 50 years, and after that Ghana can go. After that, people who were part of this whole group can go back to their separate lands. Uncle, if you can address that for us briefly, then we can wrap up on the show.
Well, first of all, before the advent of colonialism, Africans were organized into decent societies, productive societies, and so on. Indeed, the accounts of Don Diego de Azambuja, who landed at the beaches of Elmina in the 1400s, is very clear. The European explorers, when they came to Elmina, their first contact with the Gold Coast, wrote about a thriving mine which was so advanced. Indeed, when we were doing deep mining, they were doing surface mining. They spoke about the city of Elmina, whose roads were paved, excellent, the hygiene in the city and so on. These are the accounts of the European explorers themselves. They marveled at what they saw in Africa when they came. So we did not need classical colonialism in order to be able to develop. We were already developed. Indeed, the name Elimina, which was given to the first place they came in touch with, translated into Portuguese, is the mine. We were already doing deep mining before they came. Our culture was most advanced. Before they got in touch with us and so on, we had the ancient kingdoms, Mali, Songhai, and so on. They existed. There's the story of Mansa Musa, and so on. So these stories have to be told. Our history has to be taught, so that we don't get questions that without colonialism, how could African states have been formed? You understand? We don't have enough time. This conversation must continue. It is continuing in all the collectives of the Socialist Forum of Ghana. It is continuing in the communities in which we work. And indeed, for all of you who have expressed interest in joining us, we'll try and reach all of you one by one and engage with you and find areas and avenues that we can all participate in building strong organizations that will resist colonialism, that will resist the neoliberal agenda, which is a disguised form of colonialism, that will resist the system which puts the IMF in charge of African affairs, regardless of who we elect as president and so on. Victory will certainly be ours. Thank you.
Yes, victory will certainly be ours. Lastly, this one says, good evening. Do you have a WhatsApp group for Pan-Africanism? I think he means Socialist Forum of Ghana. I think Uncle Kwesi Pratt should get time and educate most of us. We are all ignorant. All right, thank you very much for your message. Now, before we wrap up, I'd like to put this message across. Tomorrow at here at Pan-African Television, we are having a lecture on the life and ideals of Ernesto Che Guevara, and it will be moderated or addressed by the ambassador of Cuba to Ghana tomorrow at exactly 4:30 p.m. If you cannot make a time here with us, you can join us on Facebook. We'll be live on Facebook at Pan-African Television. I'd like to say a very big thank you to the producers of the Wednesday Palaver, Loretta and Roseanne. And of course, a very big thank you to the director at the MCR, Adam Lumo, and of course to all the camera directors who make sure this program was a success. So this is how we wrap up on the show. My name is Ivan Vance Aban. I'd like to say a very big thank you to our speaker also for making time to explain to us the history behind our colonialism and of course imperialism largely. It's bye for now and do enjoy the rest of our programs.